Hello, and welcome back to the Accounting Podcast, your weekly news roundup for accountants and the number one show for accountants in the world. I'm Blake Oliver.
And I'm David Leary.
And we are
Blake,
back.
I'm so glad we do this show together because I only saw you at Intuit Connect for 8.5 minutes total.
I know, right? It's just nuts. We're running around like crazy, and I see you more on this screen than I do in real life, but it works, you know?
Yeah.
I'm eager to hear your thoughts because we didn't get to connect at all. So I want to know everything. We're going to talk about Intuit's Enterprise Suite. We saw a demo of that product. At least I did. I guess you missed it. And we both saw the keynote in which Sasan Goodarzi, the CEO of Intuit, apologized to accountants. And we have a clip of that. I want to play that for everyone to kick things off. But first, let's thank our sponsors.
Yeah, we should thank our sponsors this week. We LiveFlow, who I saw at QuickBooks Connect, Relay, who was also at QuickBooks Connect, and Cloud Accounting Staffing, who I don't think was at QuickBooks Connect. But if Jordan from Cloud Accounting Staffing was, we probably just missed each other.
Thank you to our sponsors. All right, now we are taking you to the keynote at Intuit Connect. Sasan Goodarzi did a fireside chat, and he, about 17 minutes in, he addressed the elephant in the room, which was that TurboTax video, break up with your accountants. So let's take a listen.
I would just end with maybe the last thing that I would say is the most important, which is, we are in the people business, and we've talked a lot about, as a leadership team, about how we up our game with all of you in terms of the relationships that we build. And you're gonna feel and sense a very different Intuit in these next couple of days, but also it's about our say-do, what we do leaving this place. But also, in relationships, sometimes you screw up. And I wanna acknowledge when, as we're looking to transform the world with you and for you, that there are going to be times that we may do things that where you may question our intention. And well, I don't get this kind of a response in the state of the company that I do. But so let's talk about that. And this is actually really important, and it's a really important point to sort of leave on, because we ran and took off air very quickly a tax campaign. And this is just important in terms of intentions and our relationship. And listen, when we make a mistake, we're going to own up to it. And this is my mistake, by the way, not my team's. I own it. Anything good that happens, it's my team. Anything not so good that happens, I own it. And but the context is really important, and what we've learned, and more importantly, the takeaway that I want to share is probably most important. We serve 100 million consumers, and we hear a lot from the low-income consumers that we serve that, hey, I want a better tax experience, and I want it at a low price. I feel like I'm paying too much. And our goal, by the way, is that we have created a virtual expert platform where we can enable customers to get their taxes done from anywhere in the world. And by the way, we have 12,000 experts, our partners, that have their side business that are on the platform serving customers. Experts is the key equation to all of this. But we made a mistake in terms of our how, because the campaign that we ran came across as it's about the expert versus we're actually trying to create and communicate a very different experience, because we're actually, we're creating hundreds of millions of dollars of income for experts that are on our platform. And the very experts, by the way, some may be in the room, many are not in the room, because many of you have different focus areas. I share that context just so you know that we have good intentions. Sometimes we make mistakes. I will own up to the mistakes that we make, and we'll get it right. Because the goal is we want to help consumers, small businesses, mid-market businesses, you are many of them, and our accounting partners to thrive. That's our focus. And back to where I started, which is the relationship. My entire team is here because, and you can expect us to be here with you every step of the way, every day of the year, but also at every Intuit Connect, because we are really upping our game in terms of the relationship. Because everything that we're trying to do with AI is to create a prosperous future for all of us, but the relationship matters. The intent matters. The trust matters. And when we screw up, we'll own it. And for what we did that we took off air, I apologize. I own that. Our focus is still serving consumers with you, better experience, the best price, but we learn from it. And thank you for your feedback, because I've spoken to some of you. I've replied to many emails, and I just want you to know sometimes, although it may not feel like it, I'm on your side. We're on your side.
Do you have
So, where should we start?
All right, David, I want to get your take on this. I have my thoughts. First, we should point out that the applause was a bit thin at the end of that apology. And did you hear the laughter at the beginning of it when he opened it up? Yeah.
And you playing this, though, is for anybody who was not at the event or watched the entire video, out of context, this isn't so bad. It's kind of okay-ish. It's better than I remember it. But you have to understand, this is what, 14 minutes, 15 minutes into the opening. This is the opening keynote. We just kicked off Intuit Connect. They bring out a VP at Intuit to interview the CEO.
Right.
And within 3.5 minutes, it was bombing. People were texting each other. They lost the entire audience. So by the time he got to this apology, most people were checked out. He already lost the room. Yeah. So in person, this did not feel very well delivered at all. Loosely, it was like AI wrote the whole interview. And then arguably, I'm going to make a joke here. Don't get upset. Like Sasan was stumbling a little bit, and I'm like, is Sasan AI? And he's glitching. It was a very, very, very rough interview. Unfortunately for Sasan, he does not connect very well to the audience. He had to follow up Brad Smith. I get it. It's impossible. Nobody's going to be able to live up to those, blah, blah, blah. But over and over again, Sasan is on keynotes, and he does not connect with the audience. Then you compare it to like Ted Callahan. He comes out there. It feels genuine, right? So yeah. That's really the context of this. You have to take in the entire interview, not just the apology. But go ahead.
And like you said, we were texting each other during the beginning of this fireside chat, and it felt like they didn't prep at all. I didn't understand what they were talking about. It was like supposed to be about AI and the future of accounting, and it just went all over the place. And it was not like, it wasn't relevant to accountants, it felt like. But let's talk about this like apology, just briefly, if we can, because I was listening, and in the moment, I don't really understand what he was saying. I had to go back and listen again and again, and it sounds sort of like, I mean, in many ways, it was not an apology, in the sense that he said we got the how wrong. What does that mean? That means that they just said it the wrong way. But the actual message they're standing by, it sounds like. And what's the message is, there are low-income consumers who feel like they're paying too much for tax prep.
And they're trying to meet that gap in the market opportunity, if you want to call it that.
Right. And what is that? That means competing with other providers, tax pros, who are charging more. So he's not backing away from that. Intuit is going to continue to compete with tax professionals.
And they have forever.
And they're going to undercut them.
They have forever. If you think TurboTax, it has since day one.
Yeah.
But the way they delivered this, they executed,
you're right.
The execution was absolutely horrible this year. It was not needed. It was a dumb ad campaign. It created a bunch of headaches that did not need to happen. They stirred the pot. It's like that hornet's nest, and you're up there poking it for no reason. Just let it be.
Right. Well, there's a difference between filling a gap and trying to take market share from accounting professionals, which is what they are doing, and which Sasan's apology appeared to say they're going to continue doing. That's not going to change. They're going to continue to take market share from tax professionals. And the justification is that we have thousands of tax pros working for Intuit, for TurboTax, and we're paying them. They're making money through us, right?
Yeah.
But it's still there. The competition is still there. And so there's no commitment to any changes, right? It's just we're taking down this ad campaign and that's it. So, I think that's why the apology didn't get very good reception at Intuit Connect. Is it just damage control? Is it actually genuine acknowledgement? It's certainly not a strategy change. Intuit's strategy is to take as much of the tax prep market as possible from whoever, whether that is their accountant customers or not. And like you said, David, that is nothing new. They've always been doing that. So I suppose that there is,
And when you talk to people at the conference over beer, at the mixers and everywhere else, people were talking about the apology. And people were just like, that's it, 2.5 minutes. You get all these people in the room. You could say anything you want. And this is what was delivered.
Yeah. And he ends with, although it may not feel like it, I'm on your side. But Intuit is not on your side when it comes to this. They are competing with you. And so, of course, the key is to just not compete with Intuit when it comes to TurboTax services and with, QuickBooks services, is don't compete with them. Move up market. And that's what everybody at Intuit Connect is doing. The conference
including
was mid-market focused,
right?
Including Intuit including Intuit themselves with their product, which we should get into talk about. Boring Accountant says, and welcome to our live stream viewers, Boring Accountant says, how can an organization take market share of clients when there is an accountant shortage? Maybe the shortage is not as significant as reported. David, thoughts on that?
Their bet is they're going to be able to do a lot more with AI, right? Or continuing. And when we start talking about some of the product announcements, we can tie it back to, with them getting into bookkeeping, there's all these great features that are happening to the bank feeds. And I think it's because they were doing the bookkeeping themselves. That's how these features come, get to the end users eventually.
Martha in the live stream on Twitter says, problem isn't competition, it is offering 10% less. Right. So it's undercutting accountants. And actually, I would say that is probably the most offensive part of this is accountants struggle. We struggle as a profession to charge a fair price for our services. We often undervalue our services. And here we have Intuit undercutting our efforts to charge more for our services. I think that is very insightful, Martha. Thank you.
Or imagine the other way around. If Intuit ran a commercial that encouraged people to pay a premium for accounting services and tax services. Imagine the reaction if they actually did that, right? Encourage the market.
So we kind of saw the reduced enthusiasm for Intuit in general at this conference. And you saw it in the numbers. I saw a press release from Intuit saying they had 2,400 attendees this year. That seems to be like 1,000 less than last year when it was Intuit Connect. I think they had between 3,000 and 4,000. Don't quote me on that, but it definitely felt sparser.
It felt smaller. I think the keynote room did feel a little smaller.
Yeah. And perhaps that's because of Intuit's shift to this, Intuit instead of QuickBooks focused conference. And then, a lot of people who have spoken at the conference in the past were not selected because they were not focused on mid-market. They were focused on, say, small independent bookkeepers and accountants, that sort of thing. And maybe they didn't feel welcome. I think one of the strategic mistakes Intuit made when they launched the ticket sales for this conference is they made it application only. You couldn't just go buy a ticket. So that probably turned some people off.
Which is ironic because the keynote on the first day was, was it Priya? Was that her name? She wrote a book called The Gathering or Gatherings. And the whole premise of that is about inclusion, including people, making them feel welcome, making them feel part of it. And this whole event was exclusionary. You excluded your typical pro advisor that maybe just only does QuickBooks people and doesn't go up mid-market. You excluded, if you notice the show floor, Blake, kind of smelled a little similar to Oracle's NetSuite. There was no payroll apps and no bill pay apps because it's built into QuickBooks now. Why do you need those apps on your show floor? So there was definitely exclusion happening which is ironic considering the first keynote was exactly the opposite of that.
That's right. Well, let's talk about the enterprise product, the Intuit Enterprise Suite, as they're calling it. I got to see a brief demo of this. You could schedule a 30-minute time slot to go to the Intuit booth and to see. And I got to say, I didn't get to see that much because it was one of those pre-done demos that you click through. It wasn't the live product. What do you call that thing where it's like just like a slideshow?
It's staged.
Of the product.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a stage demo, right? And so I'm not sure if it like is really in production yet. I guess people are buying it, so it must be. But here's the key takeaways, okay, what this thing does. So
I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to do an ad, and then we'll do the key takeaways right after that.
Let's do it.
So our first ad is from LiveFlow. I'm going to add the banner here. So are you a QuickBooks fan, or do you prefer Xero? Well, I've got some exciting news for you. LiveFlow now syncs with QuickBooks and Xero to Google Sheets and Excel. You might already know that LiveFlow has been a game changer for thousands of accountants and their clients, automating financial reporting from QuickBooks Online to Google Sheets. But if you were an Excel user or on Xero, you were kind of left out until now. And Blake, here's something that'll blow your mind. You can create a consolidated reports for clients who have one entity on QuickBooks Online and another on Xero. LiveFlow can speak to both at the same time. And your reports, your custom dashboards automatically sync in real time. But now, Blake, there's even more LiveFlow news. LiveFlow now has dashboards built in. So now instead of you having to create custom charts and graphs from scratch in Google and Excel, which is just a lot of clicking, LiveFlow now gives you the ability to create beautiful customizable dashboards for your clients. And you can even give the client the dashboard as a PDF in case, everybody has clients like that. You can't really give them the real dashboard. You have to give them a PDF. So if you're ready to take your financial reporting to the next level and to get 25% off your first 3 months, head over to accountingpodcast.promo/liveflow. That is accountingpodcast.promo/LIVEFLOW.
All right. Thank you, LiveFlow. And now let's talk about Intuit Enterprise Suite. So I saw a demo of the product, a stage demo, and here's my takeaway. You've got a bunch of QuickBooks files, one for each entity. And this is for a multi-entity business. So, let's say you have, a restaurant with 5 locations. You set up a parent entity, and then you set up your 5 subsidiaries, and they're all linked together through the Enterprise Suite. And what this means is that they get a common chart of accounts. So they all share the same chart of accounts. They can have unlimited dimensions, and these dimensions can be shared between the parent and all of the entities.
It's 25, not unlimited, right? 25.
The guy told me unlimited, so I'm just quoting what I was told.
Okay.
Is it 25? It's limited to 25?
I think it's up to 25 deep. Yeah, unlimited starts to get really crazy.
All right. Yeah, I'm trying to imagine how it could possibly be unlimited and they could actually do this reporting. So you get rolled up reporting. So you can, consolidate instantly all of the entities to the parent. And then you can also, what was I going to say? You can consolidate all the entities and
you report it up.
You can do automatic allocations.
Yeah.
So if you have a transaction come in at the parent or subsidiary level that needs to be allocated to different subsidiaries, you can do that in QuickBooks, and it will make the journal entries to the appropriate entities for the allocation. So let's say a rent payment comes through and you're paying rent for multiple entities from the parent. You can book the transaction and allocate the rent to the different entities, and it'll all get done. And then it does automatic intercompany eliminations. So if you have transactions, right? Let's say one subsidiary sells to another subsidiary, right? That revenue has to be backed out, and that cost has to be backed out when you consolidate, because you don't want to double count revenue, right? Yeah. Revenue, like sales between subsidiaries, they don't count as real sales. So that's what it purportedly does. And if it does it well, that's actually really exciting. I mean, that is the main functionality of a Sage Intacct or a NetSuite when it comes to multi-entity accounting. And that's why a lot of people have to switch, because once you get to multi-entity in QuickBooks, there's been no way to keep those intercompany accounts reconciled easily. And it was a lot of manual work and a lot of mistakes.
And we've been at Intacct and sit down and you talk to business owners that are there. And why did you switch? I bought another company. That comes out of the mouth so many times.
We
Or
opened
they're
another
nonprofit.
location.
Yeah,
Yeah.
another location. They're nonprofit and they have tons of reporting needs that
Yep.
it doesn't handle very well. So definitely a market fit. In general, I did sit through one of the webinars they did a week before. Not super impressed. Some piece of me feels like this is QuickBooks painted blue. And then all the acquisitions they made along the way, they're starting to tie them together. And I actually even feel like that's the vibe of the audience. The audience there is not super sold on this product. But Blake, I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter what you and I think. It doesn't matter what the 2,000 people that attended there think. And the reason why is I think we just witnessed a $3 billion a year revenue product launch.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. There are between 40 and 140,000 businesses in this country that could use this product, and Intuit can capture significant market share from NetSuite and Intacct at a lower price point.
And they've made all these acquisitions the last 5 or 6 years. Now this is going to be a go-to-market, right? A service, support, marketing initiative, and sales initiative that'll eventually lead to the engineering work to build all this stuff to make it work.
Yeah.
But if you do the math, 25,000. If they sell these for 25,000 a piece, that's only 120,000 businesses to hit $3 billion.
So $25,000 a year a piece for this solution, which is basically lower than the starting price of
easily half as much.
NetSuite.
Right? Yeah.
I don't know what Intacct is coming in at these days, but I think that's reasonable. Okay, so $25,000 a year times how many businesses?
120,000 gets you to that $3 billion number.
Okay, so that would be if they basically took all of these mid-market companies, at least the way I have defined mid-market in the past when I've worked at software companies. But I guess there might be many more that could use this product if it's just the multi-entity that they need.
I mean, you could estimate maybe 10% of the QuickBooks base is quote unquote enterprise. There's definitely 150 to 200,000 using QuickBooks Enterprise Desktop still, I think.
How many are there?
I think there's still 100 to 150,000 still using QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise.
Okay, so basically if they can convert QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise customers to this product,
they'll
they
hit
could
3
probably,
billion. It's 3
right.
Yeah.
But here's the challenge of that, right? Is what do people pay for QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise right now?
So I think if Intuit historically has gotten you for everything, they sold you everything. Maybe 6 to 8. They might, if they're getting it more than 8 from anybody for one business entity, I'd be surprised. That's probably the peak where it's at. But really, why they're going to sell in godly amounts of this, because they're going to set it up. It's enterprise sales. So you're going to have this. You're the salesperson. Here's my needs. Here's the other products I want. I have 2 entities. I have this many users. I need payroll. And they're going to give a custom quote. But at the same time that person's shopping for that, they're probably also talking to the sales rep at Sage Intacct and the Sage Oracle NetSuite. And Intuit, they're going to get quotes at those places, 40, 50, 90,000. Learn that they have to have an implementation specialist, right? It could take a year, 100 grand for that. And Intuit's going to come in at 20K, 25K, and it's going to be a no-brainer decision. And I've heard that it's only taking people a week, 10 days, 14 days to implement, to roll out, because it's just QuickBooks. It's the same QuickBooks under the covers. That's why all the apps still work.
Geraldine says, even single entity with dimensions, price point to start at $7,500, is a game changer for nonprofits who can't track grants well now. There are 1.5 million nonprofits in the U.S. So there you go, David. So you think this could be a $3 billion business?
Oh, I think 4, but when I read my notes today, I thought I was crazy. But I do think it's 4 possibly of revenue. This is going to take Intuit from $16 billion company to a $20 billion company.
Maybe more. So if it generates that much, that would actually put it at the level of TurboTax, which generated $4.4 billion in revenue for fiscal year 2024. And here's my theory about why Intuit is moving this direction, David. Because they don't have to. They could keep doing what they're doing and make money and just improve on, QuickBooks and continue to make money and print money, and they're doing really well, right? So why are they going to this huge effort? I think that Sasan Goodarzi, although he struggles to connect with accountants and to effectively message in some cases, I think he is actually an incredibly brilliant entrepreneur, leader, and visionary, right? He originally came up through product, right, David?
He was on the TurboTax side always.
Yeah.
Yes. He was
And
the
so
VP
he
of
knows how to
TurboTax.
build a product, and he's obviously very in tune with what's going on with AI, because that's what the whole keynote was about. Even though it was way above, it was not, the reason it bombed is not because what he was talking about wasn't relevant and important. It's because it was like way too out there for the accountant audience, right? He was talking about like stuff that's 10, 20 years in the future, and you know, space aid, like Jetsons kind of stuff, right? So I think actually he understands where things are headed, and TurboTax is actually under an existential threat from AI. We are approaching the point at which we are going to have networks of AI agents that can complete tasks. So think of an AI agent as a single chat conversation. That's a very simplistic way to think about it, but think about it as one chat thread. And like a custom GPT, we've talked about making these custom GPTs that have one discrete task, and you can do that right now. So imagine that you had a bunch of these, and each one was responsible for filling out one tax form, just one form. You gave it the instructions, and you told it, here's your function. Your function is to fill out this form. And what if you linked, what if you created one for every single form on a 1040 or any tax return, and then you link them together with a manager agent AI whose job is to delegate the work? That type of AI agent relationship, like groups of AIs that operate as independent agents, will be able to complete an entire tax return in not too long, like in years.
I agree.
And TurboTax's entire business is built on this deterministic rules-based software that they have invested billions in building over decades. And that is all going to be supplanted by AI tax filing.
But who's going to build it first? Obviously, lots of startups, or is Intuit going to build it?
Well, and that's the thing, is that large organizations struggle to innovate because they cannot cannibalize their existing businesses without hurting their quarterly earnings.
Intuit's one of the few companies that's been able to do it.
Right, but to this scale, to the point where this is like 26, 27% of their annual revenue. So they definitely moved to cloud from desktop, but that was a conversion, right? And they were actually able to charge more money when they did it. Yeah. This is different because the cost is going to plummet, because AI startups are going to be able to create networks of AI agents that complete tax returns and charge a fraction of the price that Intuit is charging.
Complaining Intuit made an ad for 10% of our fees, it's going to be 90%. Probably reduction in the fees you're able to charge because of this. It's not that Intuit's under threat. The whole tax prep world is under threat.
So I have this vision in my mind of like, you have a little fish, which is the tax pros, and you have a slightly bigger fish called TurboTax that's eating the tax pros, right? It's got its mouth open. And then you've got an even bigger fish chasing that one that's AI tax prep. So in a sense, all of this, you know, discontent, brouhaha, whatever you want to call it, about this ad is irrelevant, because in just a short amount of time, basic tax returns are like all the tax prep, filling the forms out, putting the numbers in the boxes is going to be completely automated. And a chat bot or even a voice assistant, I mean, we're starting to talk to these agents, right? We'll just interview you over the phone, essentially, and ask you for your information and complete the return. Like just like TurboTax full service does now.
Or TurboTax Live. Essentially, it's going to be a live AI agent you're interacting with.
And it will do everything. Yeah.
Should we cover some of the other QuickBooks features that they announced and showed and that actually are being rolled out as we speak?
I think we should do that.
Are not enterprise related. Right.
But first, let's thank our second sponsor. Thank you to our sponsor, Relay. So David, between you and me, we have how many entities? 3, 4, 5 business entities. We've got 20 checking accounts. We've got dozens and dozens of virtual cards. And it would be impossible for us to manage all of this if we weren't using Relay as our small business bank. Relay is truly a part of the tech stack that we use to run our businesses. Relay allows me and David to each have our own logins. We can grant access to our team and even our accountant without sharing passwords or two-factor authentication codes. Relay allows us to grow and scale our banking needs without ever going into a physical branch. I recently added an account to receive inbound merchant services with just a few clicks and had to create payroll checking, again, just a few clicks, and we instantly get access to ACH info to give to the payroll provider. Literally, the account number and routing number is there in seconds. And with Relay's virtual cards, we can issue debit cards to our team around the world for needed business expenses. We can spin these up. We can even get Visa credit cards now, and we can set both daily and monthly spending limits. And when a team member doesn't need their card, we can freeze it until they need to use it again. Relay also has automation features to sweep money automatically from one account to another based on dates, amount, or target balances or percentages. So for example, inbound payments can be split daily to payroll, sales tax payable, operating, and savings accounts based on predefined rules and percentages. So to learn more about using Relay for your firm and clients, head over to accountingpodcast.promo/relay. That is accountingpodcast.promo/RELAY.
Thank you, Relay. So these are not in any particular order. They just showed things, and I wrote down these announcements they made, and they showed, and really whether or not it got claps. So people were happy about some things at Intuit Connect.
So you had like an applause-o-meter at the conference.
I should have tried to capture it that way. So they did have like 100 bug fixes scroll by on a screen, but I couldn't write them down fast enough, couldn't do that. But then they were talking about how even a small thing. So now in the bank feeds, if you hover over the bank description, it'll just show it to you when you mouse over it instead of having to click into each transaction, expand it to read the bank description. Claps, lots of claps. They added more content to the grid of the bank feed. So now like classes, locations, et cetera. And that's in the app now. I opened up my QuickBooks. It was in there. They added that. That got lots of claps. The bank feed AI is being used now. I'm sorry. There's AI using the bank feed to go get the description. So for example, if you see a charge for what's our restaurant, they give an example of, where'd you eat in the Aria Hotel?
That patisserie.
Okay, and who knows? Is that a business expense? I don't know what that is. Well, the AI will go out, instead of me finding it and Googling it and sticking it in, it'll just go find it and bring back the information. So, oh, this is a restaurant inside the Aria Casino, and then you can approve the expenses coming. So they're using it for that. That got a lot of loud claps because that's a lot of clicking that's eliminated. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of these features we're seeing is because Intuit's doing bookkeeping themselves, and this slows down, doesn't let them scale. And every time they fix something like this, but again, if they roll out to everybody, we all win. One thing I thought that was cool is they're starting to use AI. So you've done this, right? You're somewhere, you getting this like biz dev deal done on a napkin at a restaurant. Hey, this is going to be the invoice. We're going to charge you for this. You can take a photo there, and AI will basically create the draft of the invoice in QuickBooks now for you. You hand sketch an invoice, and it'll put it in. So then
that is a very specific use case, but I
doesn't
like
have to be
it.
A napkin, but a lot of people handwrite things all the time.
But could I write it in an email and forward it in and make the invoice that way?
That I don't know. You could try.
That would be pretty cool.
You can now edit paychecks for a 90-day window for paycheck correction. So people were very happy about that. The one that got the biggest applause, apparently PayPal and Venmo transactions keep getting set to uncategorized assets in the bank feed, and they fixed that. It doesn't happen anymore. That got the most applause. One thing that was cool, if you upload CSVs of general journal entries, you can now review them all before they actually post to the GL. You can review them. There's a process to do that. Revenue rec, depreciation of fixed assets, some of those are coming. The other one that got a lot of applause, you can now open multiple QBO companies in different browser tabs at the same time. Before, you used to have to create like sessions that kept all the cookies separate, but now you can have all your clients open on a bunch of different tabs all at the same time, which is huge without having to multiple logins, et cetera. And then the last one that got a lot of applause is they're adding a bunch of CRM features to QBO, because for most businesses, QBO is their CRM. But now if you think about all the things extra you might want as a CRM with MailChimp, so they're making it really a true CRM, because a lot of the CRMs I've seen over time, they're like, look, we sync to QuickBooks and show you all the sales for that customer all on this dashboard. Like QuickBooks has all the data. It makes sense for them just to have a better customer experience on the CRM side.
And this is all part of Sasan Goodarzi's vision for QuickBooks becoming a business operating system, not just an accounting system. And that is really smart because once you get, I mean, QuickBooks is already sticky, right? But once you get people using it as a CRM and for accounting, they're never leaving. And they'll be happy to pay you twice as much, maybe more. So is that all
They just
for the
will.
new?
They'll keep raising the price and they'll just keep paying.
That's right. Exactly. That's why SaaS is so brilliant.
I think that's all I really had. I mean, we talked about the overall vibe. Oh, what we didn't talk about, Blake. You did a talk at QuickBooks or Intuit Connect, and I heard great things about it. And tell us about your talk.
Thank you. Yeah, I talked about it a lot last time, so I won't go into too many details. But basically, I showed how to build your own off-the-shelf financial statement analysis tool using workflow software, Zapier, and the developer keys with ChatGPT, which anyone can do. So that session I'm going to redo on Earmark webinars this year. I think I'm not going to be able to do it until December, but stay tuned. Subscribe to our newsletter, our emails, earmarkcpe.com. You'll get our weekly roundup of webinars coming up, and that will be there. So you can learn how to build your own AI agent into your workflows in your firm. And you can use it for anything. I demoed financial statement analysis, but like the possibilities are endless.
The two big pieces of feedback I heard was A, they loved how you left in your mistakes. So you made mistakes and you had to troubleshoot to solve your mistake to fix something. And they love how you left that in. And they love how you went click by click details. Because for a lot of people, they need to watch, oh, Blake did this for 10 seconds, hit pause. You know, if I'm fixing a toilet and I'm watching YouTube, I'll pause it, do the next step, press play. And people really love like the level of detail you went into. And they're looking forward to like watching it, pausing it, playing it. So kudos. It was a real AI presentation versus this high level.
Click by click actual, like you can see how I did it. We have a question from a live stream viewer. Joseph asks, as an accounting student who's interested in going into tax, is it safe to say tax preparation will be obsolete and the faster I learn tax resolution, tax planning, the better / safer I'll be? 100%. Joseph, the actual act of taking the numbers and putting them into the returns is going to be handled by AI. I mean, we already got software that does a lot of it, right? It's crazy to think we went in, like one generation from doing this by hand to having software that puts the numbers into the forms. And
I feel like for at least a decade now, Intuit, if you're a simple like 1040 filer, you just have like one job, a W-2, the mobile app, you could just photograph your W-2, photograph your driver's license, file your whole return, and not actually do any data entry at all. So I think that's kind of been here. It's going to happen now for complicated returns.
Tax planning is great, but actually tax resolution, you talk about a great area to get into because that's not going to be automated anytime soon, right? The IRS is still working on modernizing their database. Everything is manual. So I have a hard time imagining how anyone's going to automate tax resolution, but I don't know, maybe they will, but it seems like a good area to get into. So.
And if AI hallucinates and files a bad return for you, you're going to need to hire a tax resolution person to get things back on track and fixed.
And also, you know, when I say that AI is going to do all the prep, I'm talking about like relatively simple returns, which is like 80% of the returns out there, maybe 90%. But there's that like top 10% that's always way more complicated and is going to be like protected for a long time. And you'll use AI tools to help with that kind of stuff, to do the research, the planning and whatnot. But it's not going to be like done exclusively by an AI for a while. Speaking of AI, David, I wanted to show a video to everyone of one of the most amazing features to come out in the AI space since I started following this thing, right? Since GPT-4, and that is Claude computer use. And this is like a great example of why we are going to have AI agents that can do basic tax prep tasks, because this tool uses AI and can actually move your mouse and type on your keyboard for you. So it doesn't have to have database access or API access to work in the programs that you are working in.
So if I have an old desktop legacy software, in theory, it can interact with it just through the mouse and keyboard.
Right. So think about what that means. That's tax software. Most tax software is still desktop based and you can't access into the program via the API. Well, this is our way in. And so I think like eventually, when you do a return with, I don't know, ultra-taxed or whatever, you'll be able to just tell the AI, here's all the information in this folder. Here's the program, right? Go fill it out. Go do it. So let's watch it. This is not specifically tax. This is like doing some web developer kind of stuff. But I think you'll get the idea. And I'll, for our podcast listeners, I'll do my best to narrate what's going on if they don't. It's a little 2-minute video.
So I'm Sam, and I'm one of the researchers here at Anthropic. Computer use is something that we felt was going to be important for a while now. And so today we're going to be talking about a very early version we have of computer use and walking through a representative example of the things we think it's going to be useful for. We're going to be going through a quick demo today. In this fictional demo, a customer, in this case the Ant Equipment Company, has come to us and asked us to fill out a vendor request form. The data I need to fill out this form is scattered in various places on my computer. What we're going to do is ask Claude to look at the spreadsheet, check if Ant Equipment is in there, and if not, move over to the CRM and try and find some more information there. Once it has this data, Claude's going to then fill out the form for us and hopefully transfer the information across to the vendor form.
So here's the prompt. Please fill out the vendor request form for Ant Equipment Co. using data from either the vendor spreadsheet or search portal tabs in Window 1. List and verify each field as you complete the form in Window 2. This is actually this is a perfect task for accountants because we do this kind of crap all the time. So what's on the screen is a Google Sheet is on the screen, open, and the vendor form is also open. Now, this program, this Claude desktop app can see what's on the screen, and it can control the mouse and the keyboard, and it's going to try to do this task. So there's no integration with the Google Sheets. There's no direct integration. It's just looking at what's on the screen, and it's going to manipulate the desktop interface.
The first thing that's going to happen is Claude's going to start taking screenshots of my screen and quickly realizes that the Ant Equipment Company isn't actually in the spreadsheet. So the first thing it does is it swaps over to a CRM and searches for the company we're interested in.
It's changing tabs, and now it's going to run a search. So it understands the interface. It's learning.
Luckily, we get a search match, and Claude then starts scrolling through the page, looking for all the information it needs to fill out this form.
So it's got to look for company name, purchase order email, accounting email.
Claude then autonomously starts transferring the information across without me having to do anything.
It's copying and pasting for us. This is the end of copy paste.
And goes through the steps and fills out all the information needed.
It fills out the tax number, the primary
and
contact,
then submits the form.
And clicks
this example is
button.
representative of a lot of drudge work that people have to do. This is available in the API. We're excited for people to try it, and we should expect things to get a lot better over the coming months.
Is that unbelievable or what?
I'm trying to understand how it's being done. I think I have a guess how it's being done because when I was in QA, we used a product called Silk that eventually VMware bought, and you would automate all your tests. You'd automate all the clicking and the pasting and the putting it in, and they would basically connect through the Windows framework to identify the buttons of apps, right? And connect in at that level. And every so often, it just won't see a button. You'd have to basically give it the pixel coordinates that were on the screen.
Right.
And I think what this is doing is AI is really good at analyzing an image quickly. I think
it's taking screenshots.
It's taking screenshots. Oh,
yeah.
That's a search box. And now it knows based on that pixel, I'm going to go to that box to do the next task.
Right.
It's really it's an interesting way to attack something that's been done a very long time. It's interesting to see where this is going to go. It's kind of cool.
It's basically it's RPA, robotic process automation, but instead of being done deterministically with macros and a little bit of machine learning, this is completely done by an LLM. You give it the starting instruction, and then it attempts to complete the task. And there's, additional sophistication built in, like chain of thought prompting has been built in so that you don't have to explicitly say every step. And it has a memory, so it knows that here's my objective. I'm going to remember that objective, and then here's my different ways I've troubleshooted. Here's what didn't work. Here's what worked. So it can correct itself.
I'm all for it. I mean, every time my computer laptops, I replace the keyboard because I ruined the C and the V Control C, Control V. I ruined those 2 keys on every keyboard I ever had.
Boring Accountant says, did it guess the tax number? Is it going to plug in the payment instructions too? Maybe to a Nigerian prince? That's a good point, is I imagine that very soon we will start to see the first frauds perpetrated by AI agents. But also, there's the potential for this to really reduce a lot of fraud because it's the humans that are in the loop of all of these processes that are the weak point. And so, an AI, unless it's trained to steal money, is not going to steal, right? It's not going to have the need that humans do. I find this fascinating. So I think this is going to be something that we start to use. I mean, you can actually use this now. I haven't tried it yet myself, but it's like on my list to do this month is to try this and see what's possible. This is why it's so important. I was saying this in my session at Intuit Connect. This is why it's so important to document the processes in your firm, because documenting processes is important for training humans. If you want people to be able to do the job, you need to document your processes. But now you're going to be able to hand your documentation to AI and ask it to complete the tasks. So this actually has serious implications for a lot of apps in the QuickBooks marketplace that simply automate tasks within QuickBooks. For instance, like categorizing uncategorized transactions or completing reconciliations. I think an AI agent will be able to go into QuickBooks. I actually want to try this, David. I want to get this program. I want to say, okay, please, here's my online banking. Here's my bank statements in a folder. Here's QuickBooks in a window. Now go and complete the bank reconciliation. That might be a little too much for it at this point, but maybe it could go and at least identify all the missing transactions and enter those.
Yeah,
I could do it in stages.
And like I said, the copy paste, there's so much copy paste that's done everywhere, and this would be huge.
Here's an example: it's just like give it the bank statement and an empty QuickBooks file and say enter the transactions. Now I've skipped an entire industry of software that's like OCR and bank feed imports, right? I could just have it. Literally, AI is going to be able to do the task that I started my accounting career doing, which was keying in transactions from bank statements. Yeah.
I have a story that I want to make sure we get, because I'm afraid after the election I can't have this as a story anymore. So if you'd be
all right, but before we do that, we have
fraud,
to think.
Blake. It has fraud. What more do you want?
That sounds great. Before we do that, though, we have to thank our third sponsor, Cloud Accountant Staffing. David, would you like to read this one, and I'll get the banner up on the screen?
Perfect. In case you've missed the last 100 or so episodes of the show, maybe the last 200 episodes of the show, Blake and I have been discussing almost weekly that there is an accountant's labor shortage. Regardless of the root cause,
what?
The
Wait,
problem
David, there's
is
an accountant
real.
labor shortage?
Labor shortage.
Oh my God.
Breaking
news.
And the problem's real, regardless of the root cause. My social media feeds are full of firms attempting to fill open positions on their teams, but how can anyone increase their staff size if everyone is attempting to hire during a labor shortage? That's where Cloud Accountant Staffing comes in. They'll help you hire full-time team members for your firm that reside in the Philippines. How much would your firm change, or for that matter, your life, if you could add 40, 80, 120 hours of capacity to your firm in 2025? Cloud Accounting Staffing was founded by a firm owner who grew his firm by using offshore talent, and now he's applying everything he learned to help you grow your firm. If your firm is in need of expert bookkeepers, accountants, CPAs, or virtual assistants, head over to accountingpodcast.promo/CAS. That is cloudaccountingpodcast.promo/CAS.
Thank you, Cloud Accountant Staffing. And now, David, let's talk about your fraud story. And this has to do with the election and canvassing.
It's even better than that. It has to do with Musk, Trump, outsourcing, fraud, and QuickBooks, all in one story, Blake.
You've got me hooked. Tell me, what is this?
Just like everyone else, campaigns, political action committees, they're handing off work to outsourced labor. Right? So let's follow the money. So you have Elon Musk. He wants Trump to win. Musk donates $75 million to America PAC to influence the vote in swing states like Arizona and Nevada. America PAC spends about $30 million of this to hire companies like Blitz, Patriot Grassroots, Echo Canyon, and Synapse Group. That's not the Synapse we've been talking about, the Bake API company. These companies, they'll hire bodies, canvassers, quote unquote, to knock on doors, hand out flyers. I don't know if you've had anybody come to your door to tell you about the election or encourage you to vote either way. But the canvassers, I'm guessing, don't care about the candidate or the company they work for. They probably just see this as a temporary job for 2 weeks a year or 2 weeks every 4 years, and they want to make some extra money. So let's recap so far. Musk pays the PAC pays the outsourcers pay the canvassers. Well, many of these canvassers have figured out how to get paid and never actually knock on the doors.
What are they doing? How are they hacking the system?
Yeah. So all these outsource companies have apps that use GPS that the canvassers can log into each house they go to and log what they did at that house. You know, like, hey, I talked to somebody, nobody's home, left a flyer to track what they're doing. Specifically, one of the companies, Blitz, uses QuickBooks Workforce to track time using GPS of where these canvassers are. Well, the canvassers have outsmarted the entire system and are using GPS spoofing apps to fake their location and never actually go to the house or do any of the door knocking. There's even videos floating around of them showing each other how to do it with tips, like don't do it too fast. So
you use a GPS spoofing app.
Yeah. So basically, I could pretend I'm at your house by having this app on my phone. So
got it.
In summary, these canvassers are just sitting in their living room taking Elon Musk's money and not actually doing any of the work they're being paid for. And one guy was even fired for it at one company, one of the outsources, and then he just went and applied to the next one, got hired at that one, and did the same thing.
That's amazing.
So you get it's fraud and it's stealing, yes, but it's also
it's bad. They shouldn't do it, but also it's funny.
Do it. Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah, I wish they would apply their ingenuity to stopping the text messages that I have been receiving. Do you know how many text messages I got yesterday? I think it was like 24. Like Google. Maybe that's just because we live in Arizona.
My Android phone has really is so good now. It all goes in the spam folder. I never see them. It's gotten very, very good at it.
iPhone has a filter where you can like say known senders and unknown senders, but you still see the number, the notification number, and then I end up clicking it, and then it takes me to all the spam messages. So
you can't resist.
I just have to turn off the number. Nathan Brown in the chat says, so if I am wanting to run a tax and bookkeeping firm in my small town, am I out of luck? No, Nathan, I don't think you are out of luck. I actually think there's still plenty of opportunity, but it's not in the filling out the forms. And that's what a lot of small town tax prep businesses really are, is take the information from the W-2, take the information from the P&L for the Schedule C and put that into the return and file the return and get that done.
It's worse than that. Send the client an organizer. So the client takes that data, types it into an organizer, then gives it to somebody on your staff at your firm who takes what's in the organizer and types it into the tax prep software. There's a whole bunch of copying, pasting, and typing that should not exist.
So that's going away. So the question is, well, what is the job? What is the value you create if that is automated? And that is in the human connection. It's answering the questions for the client. It's providing them the assurance that this is getting done correctly. And there's a lot of value in that. There are accountants on Twitter who charge $1,000 or more for a return, and yet the average return price is something like $200 to $300, according to the National Association of Tax Professionals. So there's a lot of additional value in that. Now, will that exist at the lower end of the market? Probably not, right? A lot of people who just want to pay to get their return done are just going to go use automated tools to do it. So it's going to be a smaller market, but that doesn't mean that it has to be less profitable. It's sort of the same thing that happened with bookkeeping. Over the last 20 years, well, how long has it been? I guess it's been 40 years. No, when did Lotus 1-2-3 come out?
Oh,
it's like, I think it was when I was
81, 82.
30 over the last 30, 40 years, we've actually seen a decline in the number of bookkeepers by like 1 million. It's cut in half. And that's because of spreadsheet technology. You don't need bookkeepers to do spreadsheets. Are bookkeepers making less money? No. I actually saw my hourly effective rate go up 5x. It went from like $20 an hour to $100 an hour. And I was adopting automation tools. So if you do that and you increase your productivity by like 10x, you can split the profit with your customers and you can actually make a lot more money. So maybe it means doing more returns using better technology and providing amazing customer service. That could be it.
And your target customer, a business owner who maybe is going to do their business return and their personal return and their bookkeeping, if you can bundle that together, they value their time and they're going to be willing to pay you for that time. I think individual taxpayers are like, this is something I have to do. How do I do it as cheap as possible? It's hard to build a relationship just on a one-off 1040. But if you can get better clients, you're going to be better off.
Yeah, that's why you want to be their like financial advisor, right? You want to be doing their accounting, their bookkeeping, their tax planning. If you do all of that, like that's not going away that's not going away. I'm happy saying like that's not going away because I don't really see how we automate that. And if we can, then we will probably all be living in some sort of like robotic socialist paradise where nobody has to work if we have AI that's that intelligent.
Socialist paradise. Write those 2 words down. That's funny.
Well, it's like, what are you going to, I mean, like, this is the question is every human technological development, we've always said it's going to put people out of work and nobody's going to have any work. But we've always found new jobs for people. But maybe there's an end to that, right? Maybe if we achieve artificial general intelligence and AI can literally do every single job, that we won't have to work, you know?
It's possible.
I mean, that's the Star Trek vision. That is like the that's the funny thing about like Star Trek and the Federation and all that is that like that's like a socialist society. There is no money anymore. And that, funny enough, is what Elon Musk wants to create. So what do we do next? Let's talk about EY resigning as the super micro auditor because it's kind of crazy. We talked about this on a previous show. Supermicro was investigated by Hindenburg Research, a short seller. They released their report, and then the Wall Street Journal, or no, was it the Wall Street Journal that reported the investigation?
Yeah, there was rumors that there was an investigation happening, and they've been convicted before in the past. And just for historical context, Deloitte had the engagement from 2003 to 2023. And remember, I think we covered on one of the previous episodes how they pretty much issued the same letter year after year after year on these financials. But this was EY's first year of taking on the engagement. And EY... Oh,
it was their first year.
Yeah. First year. And EY... So they actually raised issues before the short seller Hindenburg came out with the report. So they already raised issues, and it caused the board to create a special committee to investigate the company's internal controls. But EY is clearly wanting to separate themselves from this quickly. Because it's probably the next massive fraud mess that's going to hit the market. Its resignation letter said it was, quote unquote, unwilling to be associated with the financial statements prepared by management, end quote. So EY wants nothing to do with this at all.
And then they wrote a letter to the Securities and Exchange Commission dated October 29th. And I just have to read you this letter. Commissioners, we have read item 4.01 of Form 8K dated October 29th, 2024 of Supermicrocomputer Inc., the company, and are in agreement with the statements contained in the first paragraph, the first sentence of the second paragraph, the third paragraph, the first 3 sentences of the fourth paragraph, the 5th paragraph, the 7th paragraph, and the 8th paragraph therein. We have no basis to agree or disagree with the other statements of the registrant contained herein. Ernst & Young, LLP.
We agree with these pieces here, but we're not going to comment on all the other ones. You can figure out if we agree or disagree. We're just not going to do it.
I mean, what a letter, right? Yeah. So what's interesting about this also is that the stock only plummeted by 33%. So even though the auditor has resigned, which is a huge step, which would seem to indicate that this company is potentially perpetrating a massive fraud, right? Because when do auditors resign? Like basically when it's no longer possible to ignore what's going on. Right? Like it's so blatant that they're like, we got to get out of here.
And what's interesting is I think it had a 33% run up recently after the Hindenburg letter because they had all these sales supposedly, allegedly. I don't know. Maybe they did, maybe they're not. Because they're in the microchip. They're competing with NVIDIA on these AI computing sales, and so they had this huge. Apparently, they were selling things through. So the stock went up 30%, and now it's right back to where it was before basically when the Hindenburg report came out. But you're right. If the auditors are bailing, shouldn't it keep falling? Or maybe there's
Right.
hope.
You would think
I
that
don't-
it would go to it would go 90% down. But maybe this is because investors don't really care that
About
much about the
financials.
auditor's opinions. Like potentially that's what this indicates. And I have a follow-up story related to this. Do you remember the appeals court decision about BDO and AmTrust, our coverage of that? An appeals court ruled in favor of, in a very strange ruling, in favor of BDO to dismiss an investor lawsuit of AmTrust investors who lost a bunch of money because AmTrust, was their financials were not legit,
trustworthy.
not trustworthy, and BDO signed off on the financials. They audited them, signed off on them, and the investors sued BDO because they lost their money because AmTrust was doing a fraud or whatever. And the appeals court had previously ruled that BDO could actually not be sued because auditor reports are so templated and the same as to be meaningless. And I thought that was really funny when that happened because, they kind of are, right? That's always been my view, is that, what is the use of an audit opinion when there's so much, when audits are so problematic? We've got these massive PCAOB failure rates in audit firms, and then the audit opinion doesn't really tell you anything other than that the auditor signed off on it. And so the update is that the appeals court has reversed its own decision, and they have affirmed that audit reports are significant to investors. And this was after the SEC filed a brief with the court asking it to reconsider. And so the change allows the investors' fraud claims against BDO for its AmTrust audits to move forward because audits actually matter. So the investors relied on the audit opinion of BDO, and now they can sue BDO because they relied on that and thus were defrauded. And this was sent to me by Jerry McGinnis, friend of the show, who has defended auditors and the value of audit opinions in the past, and always messages me whenever I have criticism of auditors. But I want to say, here's the relationship between this and what we just talked about, the Supermicro case, is that I agree that audits matter. I agree that audit opinions matter. The question is, how much do they matter? And how much do they matter now compared to how much they used to matter? Because it does seem to me that based on investor behavior, as we see here in the Supermicro case, that it doesn't seem to be as important as it used to be to investors, especially not since the heyday of, the second industrial revolution in the United States, when this whole industry was created, our profession was essentially created, and audits were considered absolutely essential to the point where we took the accountants from Scotland and imported them here so that they could audit our companies, right? So that's my question, Jerry, is, all right, if audits matter, how much do they matter to investor decision making? I don't know how much they do, really. Is it 1%? Is it 2%? Is it 10%? Is it 100? It's not 100%. We know that. That's my question. And if we could make them matter more by improving audit quality and improving the relevance of financial statements, I think that we could increase salaries in our profession, because when you create more value for investors, they're willing to pay you more. The audit committee of that board of directors should be willing to pay more for a higher quality audit that delivers value to investors. So we should be actively working to make financial statements more useful, to make them less complex and less dense, and to hide less information, to provide information that is relevant to investors, like subscription metrics. Our accounting hasn't changed in 100 years in many ways. We've just been doing these nitty gritty little things, and just look at lease accounting, the most useless change to GAAP that has ever existed. I cannot find a single person to say that was worth the effort. Let's actually make accounting mean something when it comes to financial statements, like make it more useful. And again, I'm not saying it's not useful. I'm just saying that it's like 100 years old. Accounting theory has not changed much in 100 years. So maybe it's time. The economy sure has changed. And
maybe
that
right.
is the end of my rant.
Yeah, and you're right. If what's provided via the audit is different and what's looked at is different, like you said, subscription revenue, number of customers, it's not based on this old widget mindset. Maybe companies would have less elbow room to fudge numbers, right? Because a lot of these companies are operating these gray areas that didn't exist 100 years ago when the standards were set. And
Exactly.
they get to massage and play with numbers, and it'd be a lot harder if the current standards were there. I could see where you're going with that argument.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like in the case of Supermicro, right? What are the numbers that actually matter to investors? What does Supermicro do, David?
They build processors just the way NVIDIA does for AI. They do AI chips, basically.
So for example, there's probably a lot of intellectual property that is the biggest value to Supermicro, right?
Probably a factory. They're pumping real physical chips out. There's something happening.
But it's also like the technology itself.
Yep.
And information about that technology is probably something that's relevant to investors. But take a look at their financial statements and tell me if you see much about their intangible assets. Because that's what's driving the value at Supermicro. That's what investors care about, is the intangible assets. And I'll tell you, the audited financial statements probably don't have anything about that on there. Because unless you acquire intangible assets through some sort of like merger or acquisition, they never show up on the balance sheet.
And there's probably speculation, right? If you think about how much did OpenAI want to spend? He wants to raise $15 billion to build chip factories or whatever he wants to do. Well, maybe the investors are betting like maybe they'll just buy a company like Supermicro and just there's your chip factory. Just buy it. And now you have a chip factory to create AI chips. So maybe the investors, again, they're not using the audits, they're using speculation to invest.
Right.
And that's why it has some value.
So, David, I think that's all the time we have for today. Once again, I did not get to this Reddit guy who automated his job or Google being under attack from AI. Actually, I can show that real quick. So
the attack or the automate?
The Google under attack. So basically, there was a story about Google's, like the threat to Google's ad revenue in the Wall Street Journal. So Wall Street Journal reported that there is the ad market in search is $300 billion. And we are seeing Google's market share falling below 50% next year for the first time in over a decade. And that is because we've got these AI and social video platforms like YouTube that are now delivering up better search results than Google does. And if you want to see it for yourself, just go ahead and use perplexity.ai. It essentially does a Google search for you and then synthesizes the results. So you don't have to go through all the pages. And that saves a ton of time, right? What would I normally do when I Google search? I Google search and then I hold Shift and I click on the first 10 results. And then I read all of those pages. Well, basically, AI can do that now for me.
And this is why when I Google search, I'm now seeing this like on Google themselves, it's like AI summary. They're trying to build a summary of
They're trying to do it, right? But again, that's only going to just maybe help people from leaving. But it also, like, people aren't going to click on the ads as much anymore if that summary is there. So it's a problem for their, search business. And you can try this for yourself now because ChatGPT just released web search inside of ChatGPT. So you can click on this little like web icon here that says search the web, and then we can search for anything. And it's not just going to go to ChatGPT's built-in knowledge, which is fixed as of a certain date. It will actually do a web search and incorporate those search results into its answer, just like Perplexity does. So David, give me something to search for. What is something that you want to know?
I just did this search last night on Google, and I want to know where the best place to place electrodes if you have sciatic nerve pain. And then you can put TENS, TNS if you want.
Well, I'm just going to spell it wrong anyway. So
Okay,
best place to place electrodes if you have sciatic nerve pain. So we're doing that search, and now we are searching the web, and we got an answer almost instantly. And it's saying lower back and it's got a citation, American chiropractors. And I can click here and I could actually go to the page. Buttocks, that's from the sciatica pain guide. Thighs, that's from Roots of Being. Calves, also Roots of Being. And I can click on each of these and open up the page. And I got that page.
Now, does
Then
it
there's
provide
general guidelines here,
an image?
precautions.
So Google provided an image, so I don't even have to leave. I don't even have to expand out the results and read.
Show
I
me
can just use the
images
image.
of these placements.
Okay, perfect.
Let's see if it'll do that. And here's the images. And we can click on the images. Let's see. Here's one.
Yeah. Down the leg, across and down.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
There's
Perfect.
the placements. So why would anyone use Google once they start using this? Google's in trouble.
What do I have to type to go there? What did you just use?
This is just chatgpt.com. This is, if you have the subscription, you can now web search inside of
Search through
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT. Got it. Okay.
Right. And again, perplexity.ai was the first tool to do this. But now maybe their business is going to be under threat from, like, why maybe you would just use ChatGPT, because Perplexity like layers on top of it. But I guess what I like about Perplexity is that you can choose which LLM that you connect to the search results. So you can choose, I want to use Claude, I want to use ChatGPT, I want to use their own homebrewed LLM. All right, that is all of our time for this week. Thank you, everyone who joined us live. If you want to join us live, go to youtube.com, search for the Accounting Podcast, subscribe, and hit that notification bell icon, and you'll get notified when we go live, and you can join us. Always great to see you, everyone. Thank you, Boring Accountant, Nathan, Martha, Hasley, Heather, Joseph, Ashnob, Hooked, Geraldine. We appreciate you. Thanks for chatting with us as we stream live. And don't forget, you can earn a free continuing professional education credit for listening today. Go to earmark.app, create your free account, and find the Accounting Podcast channel. The courses come out a few days after our episodes, so stay tuned if you're watching this live, and the course will be available. Anything else I forgot to mention, David?
I think that's it. We have another conference coming up next week again already. We're going to go to Avalara's Crush, which should be fun.
Yeah, we'll be at Avalara Crush in Austin, Texas at the Fairmont. So if you happen to be listening and you're going to be there, let us know. We'd love to meet you. It's our first time at an Avalara conference. Oh. And I'm going to be talking about AI on a panel.
And I guess the elephant in the room, the next time we talk, we'll have a different president. Maybe. We don't know. We'll see. We'll see if
maybe,
it gets
David.
To a finish. We might not.
Hopefully
we figure it out.
We'll know who the president is the next time we talk. Yeah. So go out and vote and make your voice heard. I got to go fill out my ballot this afternoon. I got it. It's sitting on the counter. I'm going to do it. Take it to the polling place. I went and
voted early because I'm working. Usually I'll just vote at my polling place, but I feel it's going to be really busy tomorrow. And I went to early voting. Early voting was busy. So it's good. Americans are exercising the greatest freedoms we have in the world.
And you're going to be contributing, David, by working the polls tomorrow.
Correct.
So thank you for your service. Bye, everyone. See you next week.